Good morning, Giants. I am going to make a case today uh, based off the thoughts of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. If you haven't heard of her, in 2004, she's a psychiatrist out of, I believe, Switzerland. She had a view that I believe in and I think is accurate, and I want to make a case for this, that there are only two emotions, and really there's only one emotion present at a time. And my case for this is that everything that we fear sides with one of these two emotions, love and fear. And so what happens, though, is that we choose whether we're going to respond from love or whether we're going to respond from fear. And I want to use some research around this to make sure that what I'm saying aligns with what's been found in the in science right now regarding love and fear and the primary and secondary emotions. And so I want to go through each of these and kind of make an explanation of why I think that these emotions are based on either love or fear. And you'll see this as you look at your life. You'll see where you're responding from, and it gives you a chance to stop the one and start the other, or vice versa. And so let's talk about emotions of fear first, and then we'll go into love. Anger. Anger is a secondary emotion. A lot of people don't know this. They think that anger is a primary emotion. So in treating symptoms, if you're talking about symptoms, anger would be a symptom, but it's not the underlying cause. To really eliminate it, you got to get to the underlying cause. So anger is a fear of harm. Generally, it's something might be taken away from me, and I have to defend it, so I'm going to get angry. Or it's a fear of control. Maybe something's being taken away, or it's a fear of trust, not trusting in the future. But anger is fear. It is almost always started in fear. We're afraid of something. I watched a video this morning where somebody was doing a scarf thing around their friend, and they pulled this scarf and it popped right off. And then this other guy did it to his mom, and he pulled the scarf and it didn't come off, and it choked her, and she got pissed. She just got angry and started chasing him, threw a shoe at him and everything. And it's just like when we get scared, our natural response is to get into an angry and a fighting stance, in a sense, which makes sense. Fear has four primary responses, which would be fight or flight, fight, flight, faint, or fawn, right? And so it would make sense that we would go into one of those behaviors when we're afraid. So what about guilt? Guilt is a feeling of not being good enough, right? Or that you've done something wrong. It's a fear that you might lose acceptance with others. So I can make the case that guilt is just fear, but it's a fear of not fitting into society or being accepted by others. Depression, a fear that things will never be the same. I mean, you think about sadness. Sadness is love to me. Sadness shows true compassion for another human at the loss of that, or sadness about the loss of a situation or a circumstance or a friend or loved one or pet. It just shows that we had love for them, right? So when we feel sad, that shows love. It's different. But depression is a fear that things will never get back to where they were, or that they'll never move forward. So we get stuck in this cycle of feeling depressed, which is a fear that this is never going to change, right? What about surprise? Surprise can be either positive or negative. There can be a negative surprise, like what we're experiencing. Nobody expected this to occur, right? That's a negative surprise. There's also a pleasant surprise, like, man, I'm really loving what's occurring. Like somebody brings you flowers, that's a pleasant surprise, right? What about control? Control is fear that the outcome won't turn out the way that you want. And so control is showing, I need the outcome to be a certain way, so I'm afraid that won't happen, so I'm going to take control so that I can make sure it happens the way I want. Distrust, I don't trust somebody. That's a fear that they will do something that will harm me. Or maybe they've done something in the past, maybe they'll do that again. And so this trust is a fear that they're going to do something again to hurt you. What about jealousy? Jealousy is a fear that I'm not good enough for the person that I'm with in my mind. So I have this fear that maybe they'll leave me. So notice how these all tie back, and I'm making a case for this, but they all tie back to fear. Shame. You shame a neighbor, you shame a person. You do that because potentially their behavior could affect you and that could cause harm to you. So you shame them. And so shame is a fear response. If I can tell you that you're doing something wrong because it's going to hurt me, then you might not do that, and that's going to keep me safe. What about neglect? I don't have attention for you. I've got other things to do. I'm afraid I might not get those done, so I got to do those, and therefore you get neglected. A fear about somebody just said how I'm jealous about how fast your beard's growing back. Thank you. Neglect, a fear of I might not get something done over here, so I've got to put you on hold so that I can get this taken care of. Insecurity, again, going back to guilt, it's a fear of I'm not good enough, right? All these emotions can be based in fear. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross said that really we only have one emotion present at a time. And if you haven't read her, she's the one that came up with the 5 stages of grief. She passed away in 2004, but she left a mark on the world. And out there's so much confusion about all these emotions that are out there. They branch out kind of like the fingers on my hand. You have fear, but then you have anger, and you have jealousy and insecurity and trust issues and control issues. And we end up out here attacking these, but the reality is this is what's occurring, the fear. We're afraid. And I'll tell you, I feel fear, right? I get scared. And so when I get scared, I get untrusting. When I get scared, I get controlling. When I get scared, I get really depressed and feel like nothing's going to change. When I get scared, I get angry, right? And I'm imagining that a lot of you feel that, right? The feeling of sadness, Heather Leeds, good morning. Feeling very sad today. All these feelings are overwhelming. They are overwhelming. And one of the things that we do is our body tries to get us back into a normal state. I'm going to talk about the chemicals of fear. So adrenaline's designed to spike the body and get it ready to fight or run away, right? And adrenaline is a short-term chemical that goes in and it just pumps up the body. It restricts the blood flow to certain areas so that you've got all this energy and power, right? When stress is ongoing, then cortisol is released. Well, when cortisol is released, it's a stress hormone. Cortisol is a steroid. It's an anti-inflammatory. And so when you're under stress, your body's burning up sugar. It's burning up energy. It's giving you all this energy so that you can go out and fight or run away. And for a lot of us, it's freeze. We freeze. We don't know what to do. And so that cortisol pumps through. And when that cortisol is in the body, what they found in depressed people is that they have lower serotonin levels. So when the cortisol increases, the serotonin in the brain decreases, which is your happy drug. And so as that serotonin decreases, you become depressed and sad, and that fear of this is never going to get better stays there. You have this fear of my life sucks, it's never going to get good again, right? So the crazy thing about cortisol is depression isn't the issue. The fear is. The cortisol is leaving you in stress so that you're so stuck in this cycle that you have so much cortisol pumping through your body. It's reducing your serotonin. You're feeling sad, but you're also feeling afraid that things aren't going to get better. And imagine you can look around the world today and see how much fear there is right now. What sells is fear. What also sells is love. You have this contrast of people doing amazing things for others, and you have this contrast of the people in the news and the media portraying death and destruction and loss and all these terrible things. Why? Because it's a primary emotion and it impacts us. When I do sales, I could sell either from love or from fear. And when I sell from fear, like I'm a finance manager, they call us the fear and intimidation department. Well, that can be effective at getting people to take action, creating fear about the future of possibilities. But also love can create that. And so I've been working on creating a sell from the space of, man, I really want that. I want this to be in my life. Think about the emotions of love. So let's go into that real quick. Sadness is love. It shows that we truly care about people, right? Joy is love. When we're laughing and we're watching a funny show, man, that's love. It's loving what is. Kindness comes from love. Respecting and loving others and paying attention to their needs. That's love. Surprise, a pleasant surprise, like getting flowers or chocolate or a gift, right? That's a love. We did an interview yesterday with Schmidt's Pastry Cottage, and if you can go back and listen to that, please do, because they are showing love right now by giving away bread, 2 loaves of bread, one for the person and one for a friend. And then doing that, they're creating this kindness and this empathy and this compassion for others, right? What about peace? Peace is love. When you're feeling serenity and at peace, you're feeling love. And so you're loving what is. You're loving the situation. Curiosity and interest come from love. When you're creating and you're thinking of the future, you're loving what is and you're loving into the future. You're creating. Hope. Hope is the same way. It's having this direction where you have hope for the future. So you're loving that there's possibility out there and you're going to create into that. Confidence comes from love. It's loving yourself and knowing that you are good enough. Awe. The word awful. The word awful has been twisted. The word awful comes from the word awe, which means to be inspired by or to be in love with something you're seeing, right? I could go into the canyons and the mountains in Utah and just say, these are awful. The reality is they're amazing. They're awe-inspiring, but we use that term as a negative phrase to mean terrible. Even terrible is a good word. So, all these things, let me plug in here. My battery's going to die. Being in awe of something is just being able to stand back and admire the beauty of it. That's a love response. Being inspired, when you're sitting in meditation or you're thinking or you're having a thought, an idea, you're loving the possibilities. And so the reality is, coming back to it, you're responding either from love or from fear. If you're resisting something, you're fearing it. Allowance or acceptance allows those emotions to come through you. We need emotions to flow through us. It's a natural part of life. And there's all kinds of emotions that stem from love, like this, right? And fear. So if you hold your hands up like that, you got fear on one side, love on the other, and all the branches of each coming out. If you're out here treating these, then you're missing the point. You're either treating fear or you're creating love, right? And so acceptance allows love and emotions to flow through you. So you need both. Without fear, you would do some crazy things. You need it because it keeps you in check. So we try and avoid fear, but we really do need it. I have this tattoo on my arm. I don't know if you can see that, but it's 2 wolves, black and white. It's not about getting rid of one or the other. There's a story about the one that you feed is the one that lives. Well, the negative occurs, and you can overfeed that, and that you can have negativity in your life. The positive, you can have tons of positivity in your life, but then you avoid the negative. My tattoo represents the balance between the two, that you need the negative and you need the positive. You need the love and the fear, if that makes sense. When you love something, you allow it to be present. You allow it, you accept it. It's okay for it to be here. So I'm going to give you some tools to overcome and shift your fear to love, because that's all you're trying to do is just switch from one to the other, okay? Fear causes them to stay stuck. So when we're depressed, when we're sad, we're anxious, all these things, we're resistant. And in being resistant, it persists and it stays present inside of us. And so the way to shift from fear to love is to accept and allow what is, right? To have hope for the future and to start creating into that future. That's how you shift from fear to love. When you resist the fear and you're like, this can't be here, I don't want this, I hate this situation, this scenario, I don't like that the virus is present, I don't like that they shut down my business or my job or my company or my government or all these things, and I resist that and I fight it and I get angry and mad, these are all fear responses. If I can allow it and accept it and watch it and be hopeful for the future and create into that, then I no longer feel fear. Does that make sense? You are either feeling one or the other. And so when you're afraid, when you're depressed, when you're guilty, when you're shamed, when you're feeling untrusting or jealous or controlling, What are you afraid of, really? If you can ask yourself that question, what am I afraid of? Then you can be aware of it, give it some love, meaning I'm okay with it. I accept that. It is what it is. Also, I want to create. And that shifts you over from fear to love. And that's when you start to feel joy and acceptance and surprise and awe, and you step outside and you hear the birds chirping like I do outside my window. You're able to go into the mountains and notice the beauty of the trees. You're able to call a friend and have a great conversation and be fully present to that conversation. That's love. It's not this corny hippie-ish kind of idea. It's accepting and allowing and being hopeful for the future. And so if you're feeling any of the negative emotions, they're coming from fear. If you're feeling the positive emotions, they're coming from love. The way to shift out of the negative to the positive is to accept and love the negative, and it becomes a positive. And if you don't agree, challenge me in this. I would love to have a dialogue around this. But the research tends to point back that there are primary and secondary emotions and tertiary emotions. And so part of that is just recognizing what's at play and then shifting your behaviors and thoughts around it. Lori Gomez says, so people can love again after hurt beyond words. Yeah, you can. And part of loving is forgiving. And forgiving, in the most simple term, is laying down the sword and not causing additional harm. And so that means that what is, and you accept and allow it. You don't cause additional harm. You don't have to allow them to cause additional harm to you, but you move forward. So you move forward. Let what was be what was. You know, we've all experienced some kind of hurt. You know, I went through a divorce. That hurts. You know, my kids are with my ex right now. That hurts. I want to be with them, but this whole virus has caused such a scare that I'm separated from them right now. We hurt as people. What creates a shift in that is this compassion and understanding that we all hurt, right? But to move forward, to let it go. Why are you carrying this forward? I hear people carrying pain from 14, 15, 20, 30, 40 years ago. It occurred. You're not immune to it. In fact, the people who never had any pain are pretty rare. And so, for one, stop thinking you're special in that sense, because you're not. You're not unique. A lot of us have been through pain. It's what you do from that pain, how you create out of it, how you have compassion out of it, that shifts things. I appreciate you guys being on here. You've hung with me pretty well. But remember, if I'm feeling a negative emotion here, it's fear. If I'm feeling a positive emotion, it's love. If I want to get out of fear, I need to have love for that, whatever it is. If I'm anxious, I need to have love for being anxious. It's okay for me to be anxious. It's okay for me to be afraid. I got to tell you, people, tell you guys, I feel fear. I feel fear, right? I wake up and I wonder, what can I create today? How can I help today? That gives me hope and love for a future, right? So I feel fear and I create. How is that possible, right? Stacy Kelly says staying present helps. Looking at life through the front windshield instead of the rearview mirror helps me. Beautiful. I love that. Yes. Stop looking behind. Let go. If you're pulling this big red wagon of garbage from behind you, let it go. You don't need it anymore. Let it down. And so it doesn't mean that you have to fully trust people. It doesn't mean that you have to fully let go of what they did to hurt you, right? That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is accept that it is what it is and move forward into creating something new and distinct and beautiful. Because the reality is life will go on with or without you. And if you check yourself out because of fear, then we're missing out on you. Okay? I need you to hear that. You know, Ryan, I see you making these masks and you're doing it to serve and help other people. You're creating out of it. You're creating in this fear that's occurring. You're creating a positive thing. Like, we're missing out on that when you're too afraid to act. And so to get out of that fear again, like re-engage with life. Every time you catch yourself in the fear, re-engage with the love. Every time you catch yourself feeling depressed, like there's no hope for the future, I'm afraid that this is the way it will always be, then create a way out and re-engage with that. That's why we need a purpose. Ryan says, serving helps me take my eye off my fear. You know, let me speak to that a little bit. You don't need to take your eye off the fear. If there's a danger, you want to be aware of it, right? We have fear for a reason. It's not that you don't want to be afraid. Let me be clear. You need fear, right? You want to be aware of it, but you want to be aware and prepared enough. We over prepare, right? It's like somebody says there's a tiger in the woods. So what do? We go out and we cut down the woods. We put up spikes and traps everywhere to catch the tiger. We build up a fortress with walls, and we put up an army to take down the tiger that could potentially come in and harm us, right? What would have been adequate maybe would be send out a hunter to go find that tiger and take care of it, right? But all the unnecessary stuff, come on, we don't need it. And so what we're doing is we're going into survival mode. We're trading that thriving, that beauty, that creation for fear. And you know, I say this, I'm not a highly religious person, but I am spiritual. There are two sides that you can choose in this. You can choose to be afraid over here, or you can choose to be in love with what is. So it's up to you. Go back through and watch this. Pay attention to the message. The message is so simple. You're either afraid or you're in love, right? And if you're afraid, you're not in love. You can only be one or the other at a time. And so just notice, it's kind of this balance, right? You don't want to get rid of fear because you need it, right? So don't try and get rid of it. Just love it and accept it. It's like yin and yang, right? It belongs together. And so, but recognize if you're in fear, you're not acting from love. And so the way out of it is to be okay with it and move into something that you want to create. Man, I appreciate you guys. I don't know how I can help you today, but I'm off work for the next 3 days. We've got a weird schedule. If you're struggling and you need to talk through this, that's an open door for you to reach out to me. Send me a message and say, I need to talk, and let's talk through it, right? Let's shift you from fear to love and recognize what's at play in your life so that you can shift that. We try, you know, Ryan Morris and I, we're business partners in everything that we do. And so we're trying to find ways to serve you. And so when you look at the giants and the smalls, when you look at clear path training, when you look at P8 training, all these things are tools to help you step into loving and creating. And so I'm opening that door. If you need to talk, reach out to me. I got time. I got 3 whole days. There's a lot I can get done in 3 whole days. And so reach out to me. I'd be happy to have a conversation with you. Go back and watch the video that we did yesterday. We did the video with Brett Borg. Watch the message of that. I mean, what a giant thing to do, what he did in there. So if you get a chance, go back and watch episode 2 of Wake Up with Giants and watch that interview. It'll inspire you. And so Jishnu, man, this guy, if you're not following Jishnu, guys, look for his comment in here. If you're not following him, you should be. He's an inspiring human. And I'm speaking to you direct here, buddy. I appreciate you. You guys make it a great day. You got it, man. Like this stuff, we need more of. We need more humans that, I don't know, that are real, that are scared and still creating, you know. So do it. Go do it. Go create today. Act from love. Not some cheesy way, but go act from love and create something amazing today. I'm here. Reach out to me. You guys make it a great day. I'll see you in the next video.